All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking what honestly feels like a high-stakes forensic detective story. We're talking about the 2024 NEET-UG controversy. For millions of aspiring medical students, this was the exam of a lifetime, but it spiraled into this massive, sprawling saga of breached strong rooms, mathematically impossible scores, and, well, a huge nationwide debate on how we actually secure the future of our academics. So, right off the bat, we gotta establish this central mystery here. How exactly does one of the biggest, most heavily monitored exams on the planet get completely compromised by analog vulnerabilities? I mean, we're talking about a lighter, a basic hardware kit, and literally an open back door. It sounds like a bad heist movie, right? But as we'll see from the reports, this was a very real, very systemic breach. But before we get into the mechanics of the heist, let's ground this in human terms. 2.4 million. That is the sheer number of candidates who sat down for this exam on May 5th. Think about that for a second. Millions of students whose years of grueling prep and late-night studying were just thrown into absolute chaos because of the actions of a few. This wasn't just a compromised test. It was a devastating blow to the whole idea of meritocracy. And you know, the amount of money moving around in the background here is just staggering. The Bihar Police Economic Offenses Unit found out that candidates were paying these organized education mafias anywhere from 30 to 50 lakh rupees. To put that into perspective, that's roughly 35,000 to 60,000 US dollars per student, just to get their hands on the paper early. So yeah, this wasn't just some casual classroom cheating. This was a highly lucrative, organized criminal enterprise. Things escalated incredibly fast, too. The timeline is wild. It kicks off on May 5th, exam day, with these little whispers of a paper leak. Just a few days later, May 11th, the Bihar Police Economic Offenses Unit steps in, eventually passing the baton to the CBI. Fast forward to June 4th, the results actually drop 10 days early, which absolutely ignites a public firestorm. And by July 23rd, the whole thing lands on the desk of the Supreme Court of India for a final verdict. Okay, let's break down the anatomy of the heist itself. According to the CBI investigation, the center superintendent at Oasis Public School in Hazaribagh literally just left the strong room's back door open. Enter a guy named Pankaj Kumar. At 8:02 a.m., he walks in with a basic toolkit, pops open the locker, carefully removes the seal, snaps photos of the question paper, and then, get this, reseals it by melting the wax with a simple lighter. By 10:40 a.m., a whole network of medical students acting as solvers had cracked the exam and were sending the answers out to paying customers. So millions of dollars spent on physical security entirely bypassed by the absolute simplest of tools. Now, when the results were finally announced, the grading system just looked mathematically broken. 67 students achieved a flawless, perfect score of 720. To give you some context, in previous years, you'd maybe see one, maybe two students hit perfection. So an unprecedented spike of 67, that immediately signaled to everyone that something was fundamentally deeply wrong with either the grading process or the exam's integrity. But wait, it actually gets weirder. People started seeing scores of 718 and 719 on their scorecards. Now, under the standard NEET marking scheme, where you get 4 marks for a right answer and lose exactly 1 mark for a wrong one, those numbers are literally impossible. You can score a 720, or a 716, or a 715, but 718, it simply doesn't compute at all. So the obvious question is, how did so many impossible anomalies actually slip through an automated computerized grading system? Was the leak so massive that it completely broke the curve, or was there some kind of massive administrative glitch hiding inside the National Testing Agency? Well, the official explanation from the NTA was basically twofold. First off, they said they awarded grace marks to students who lost time because of administrative delays at their specific testing centers. That right there is what created those weird, mathematically impossible 718 and 719 scores. Second, out of those 67 perfect scores we talked about, 44 of them actually got a boost from an error in an older version of a physics textbook. The NTA had decided to award marks for an answer that was, technically speaking, incorrect. And that whole situation leads us to a very specific number. 1,563. That is the exact number of candidates who initially received those controversial time-loss grace marks. Ultimately, though, after a massive public outcry and a ton of legal petitions, the Supreme Court actually had to intervene. They ordered the NTA to scrap those grace marks entirely and offer a retest specifically to those 1,563 students. Meanwhile, on a parallel track, the CBI's investigation into the actual paper leak came up with another crucial number, 155. So, out of the 2.4 million people who took the test, the Supreme Court impartially recognized that exactly 155 students directly benefited from that localized paper leak run by the mafia in Hazaribagh and Patna. Which brings us to the Supreme Court's final ruling on the matter. While they totally acknowledged that a leak definitely happened, the court stated there was, quote, no indication that it was widespread enough to affect the exam as a whole. So, to protect the legitimate results of the other 2.3 million honest candidates, they officially ruled out a systemic failure. Bottom line, a massive nationwide retest was not necessary. But here's the thing. Despite that NEET ruling, the structural panic had already set off a massive domino effect. Just look at the weeks that followed. The government completely canceled the UGC-NET exam over fears of a darknet leak. After that, they postponed the CSIR UGC-NET and then postponed the NEET-PG exams too. The entire national examination infrastructure was just totally shaken, and it forced a critical, overdue rethink of exactly how testing is conducted in India. So where do we go from here? How do we stop this from ever happening again? We really have to compare the broken analog systems of the past with this proposed digital future. The old system? It relied on physical printing presses, long-haul transport trucks, and outsourced handlers. Honestly, it just had way too many weak links. The newly proposed solution is far more robust. Encrypted digital question papers delivered straight to secure servers right at the exam centers and printed just minutes before the test actually begins. Enter the new high-tech security guard for high-stakes testing, digital forensics. These organizations are now deploying serious AI to run statistical analysis on testing data to flag anomalies the second they happen. They're also firing up automated web crawlers that constantly scour the surface web, social media, and even the darknet to hunt for any proprietary exam content being sold or shared illegally. This actually brings us to a fascinating concept borrowed straight from physical crime scenes. It's called the lakh exchange principle. Basically, it's the forensic theory that every contact leaves a trace, and testing agencies are now taking that idea and applying it directly to the digital realm. Even if these organized solver gangs think they're off the grid, AI tools are specifically designed to hunt down the invisible digital footprints they leave behind in the testing data. Let's look at how this builds into a totally automated trap. Step 1, response similarity indexing. This flags students who inexplicably pick the exact same highly unlikely incorrect answers. Step 2, spatial clustering. The system takes those red flags and overlays them onto the actual physical seating chart of the exam hall. Step 3, the AI automatically pinpoints the exact classrooms where candidates were colluding. It provides hard, undeniable evidence without needing a human to manually sift through millions of answer sheets. Now, to start rebuilding trust, the government formed a special committee led by former ISRO chief Dr. K. Radhakrishnan, and their recommendations are essentially sweeping technological reforms. They're pushing for multi-stage biometric authentication and AI-driven identity verification to just completely stop impersonators in their tracks. But maybe most importantly, they're advocating for hybrid exams. That means the delivery of the test is digital and highly encrypted, but the actual taking of the test stays on paper, printed locally and securely right when it's needed. So yes, technology promises this secure, encrypted digital utopia. You can eliminate the physical paper trails, the transport trucks, and the easily broken padlocks. But we have to remember something absolutely crucial. The education mafia doesn't hack computers. They hack people. They are always going to hunt for the weakest link in the chain. Technology can encrypt a file flawlessly, for sure, but the ultimate question is, can it ever truly secure human nature? Definitely something to think about. We'll see you in the next explainer.